And the second reason for that is in a society such as Telos and the other subterranean cities, people basically live as long as they choose. We should also understand, if you've got people living for thousands and thousands of years, you can't afford to have thousands and thousands of years old of adults that are acting irresponsible. Adults that are playing detrimental games. Adults that are pushing their will onto others. All the little things that happen simply because energies are not dealt with in a young child. Which brings us also to one of the major thoughts in an education of our own that we wish to see happen here, and that's the removal of the thought form of aging and dying. Human beings were not meant to age or die. Even people who work in genetics understand that a person in truth is never older than 7 years, since their whole body changes all its cells every 7 years. Many doctors on aging will admit that they are baffled as to why people age at all, since the body is never old. So he says, so then that takes it that we have to go to a level beyond the physical to find the answer to aging and death, to the belief the same thoughts are things. In Telos, people don't believe they're going to grow old and die. They simply don't believe it. People just know that they're going to live as long as they choose. Then they will either choose to drop their body if they feel that they still have lessons to do and reincarnate again, or they will choose the path of ascension, one or the other. Some people make the decision in 600 years, some 300, others wait for 5,000, 10,000, whatever. But it's a choice that the human beings were designed to be able to make. That is one of the most important elements of our culture that we want to see brought out. Human beings as it is now, just about the time they start getting enough experience to really do something with their life, they've grown too old to do anything with it. If those thoughts are eradicated, then people realizing their youth's not going to last 10 years or 20 years, but it's going to last hundreds or thousands of years, whatever they choose. That too brings out and eliminates the majority of the detrimental behavior in life. Many people feel, I'm only going to live once, I'm only going to be young a short period of time, so I might as well wreak havoc now. If they realize that if they choose, they're going to be young for hundreds of years or thousands of years, that form of behavior becomes totally unnecessary. And people truly start growing and hanging on to their growth. And we are biologically absolutely no different than the people on the surface. We have Indian children that were left on the mountain of Shasta some hundreds of years ago. They're still living with us. They haven't grown old. They don't die. Because they were raised with the thought form that they're not going to. It's a thought that creates life or non-life, aging or youthing. Is to get past the thoughts, the beliefs that is what is going to happen. Which brings me to my personal expertise on the subject. I'm over 260 years old. As a matter of fact, I'm almost 268. And living 268 years is no different than being, for instance, 30, aging-wise. It's just I've had time to gather a whole much more experience that can be used now. My parents, obviously, are much older. There are even people in Telos that are 30,000 years old. People who saw the destruction of Lemuria, Atlantis. People who saw the Lemurian-Atlantean wars. Which also brings us in to the next stage in a person's life. After they've gotten through their teenage years and they're ready to start becoming a contributing member of society, how do they choose what they're going to do? We have a non-monetary basis of commerce in Telos. As a person is growing up, they basically watch, decide, assess their own talents. Then they decide what they want to do. And that is usually the field they pursue. They've generally set their own hours. And since everything is on a barter basis, we've gotten to a great understanding that if you don't fulfill your part of the bargain, then it hurts others than just you. What is meant by that is we are set up on a basis that the government owns everything, but the government is not responsible for controlling anything. All the government is responsible is to make sure that the food, for instance, gets from the hydroponic gardens to the distribution outlets. The clothing makes it to the distribution outlets, that furniture, all the things that are needed for people to live and to live well. We understand that you're not living unless you're living well. And when you need something, you simply go to a distribution center and pick it up. You need new clothing, you go get clothing. You need food, you go get food. You need furnishings, you go get furnishings. You need books, you go get books. And as I said, everyone sets their own hours. Someone who is drawn to gardening becomes one of the hydroponic gardens. They come and they work the amount of hours they wish. So in essence, we do have a dim period and we have a bright period. What I mean by that is we've discovered that people work in cycles better than they do in a constant. So thus, about the same time the sun is setting on the surface, filters are slid over the front of our lighting system, dimming it till it is about as dim as it is in twilight. Then when the sun would be rising, the filters start sliding back slowly, thus allowing it to get brighter and brighter. When we first moved into Telos, we experimented with leaving it bright all the time. And again, as I said, we found out that people function better in cycles. Some people like to sleep when it's dimmer and work when it's bright. Other people, like the night owls, that prefer to work or play when it's bright or when it's dim and sleep when it's bright. But everyone is allowed to function in the way that is the most comfortable to them. So everyone comes in and sets their own hours and simply informs, you might say, the foreman of whatever their job is, which hours they're going to be working over the next few day period.